The emergency alarm screamed across the bridge of the human warship Iron Resolve. Captain Robert Hayes jumped from his chair as red lights flashed everywhere. His coffee spilled on the metal floor, but he didn't care. Something big was happening. "What's going on?" Hayes shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Jessica Clark ran to her station, her hands flying over the controls. "Sir, we're getting a distress signal from the outer systems. It's bad." Hayes walked over to look at her screen. The message was coming through in broken pieces, like someone was trying to talk while running for their life. Static filled most of it, but he could hear the fear in the alien voice. "Help us. Please, anyone who can hear this. The swarm has come." The word sent chills down Hayes' spine. He knew about the swarm. Every human in space knew about them. The Vorthak were like giant insects that travel from planet to planet, eating everything in their path. They had destroyed dozens of worlds already. "Can you clean up the signal?" Hayes asked Jessica. She worked for a few minutes, adjusting dials and pressing buttons. Slowly, the message became clearer. What they heard made everyone on the bridge go quiet. "This is Colony Leader Kesaria of the Zilani people. Our world is dying. The Vorthak swarm has broken through our defenses. Our cities are falling one by one. We have maybe hours before they reach our children. Please, if anyone in the galaxy has mercy, help us. We are peaceful people. We have never hurt anyone. But these creatures, they show no mercy." The message repeated over and over. Hayes could hear explosions in the background getting louder each time. These aliens were about to be wiped out completely. Ensign Danny Miller looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm reading multiple distress calls from that system. Looks like at least 6 different colonies under attack." Hayes stared at the star map on the main screen. Little red dots showed where the attacks were happening. The Vorthak were spreading like a disease across the Kepler system. "Any word from the other galactic powers?" Hayes asked. "The Confederation? The Trade Union?" Jessica shook her head sadly. "Nothing, sir. Looks like everyone's staying away from this one." That made sense, Hayes thought. Most alien species were smart enough to avoid the Vorthak. When the swarm showed up, you either ran away or you died. There was no middle ground. The bugs didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They just consumed everything. But Hayes had seen what humans could do when they got angry. And right now, listening to those desperate voices begging for help, he was getting very angry. "Get me Admiral Thompson on the comm," Hayes ordered. The Admiral's face appeared on screen a few minutes later. He looked tired, like he'd been dealing with this crisis for hours already. "Robert, I assume you've heard the distress calls?" "Yes, sir." "Where are orders?" Admiral Thompson was quiet for a moment. Hayes could see him thinking, weighing the options. Finally, the old man sighed. "The Council of Species has decided not to intervene. They say the risk is too great. The Vorthak have never been defeated in open battle." Hayes felt his anger growing. "Sir, there are millions of innocent people down there." "I know, Captain, but we have to think about Earth, about humanity's survival. We can't risk our entire fleet on a battle we might not win." The bridge went silent. Hayes looked around at his crew. He could see the disappointment in their eyes. These were good people who had joined the Space Navy to protect others. Leaving those aliens to die went against everything they believed in. But then the Admiral's expression changed. Hayes had known Thompson for 20 years, and he recognized that look. It was the same look he'd had before they took on the pirate fleets near Jupiter. "However," Thompson continued with a small smile, "I never ordered you to return to base. And if a single ship happened to respond to that distress call, well, that would be the captain's decision." Hayes grinned. "Understood, sir. We're experiencing some communication problems. Might take us a while to receive new orders. Take care of yourself, Robert. And remember, if you're going to do this, do it right. Show them what humans are capable of." The connection ended. Hayes turned to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was looking at him, waiting for orders. "You heard the man," Hayes said loudly. "Set course for the Kepler system. Maximum speed." "Sir," Jessica called out. Shouldn't we wait for reinforcements? Hayes looked at the screen showing those red dots spreading across alien worlds. Somewhere down there, families were hiding in bunkers while monsters tried to break down their doors. Those people don't have time for reinforcements. They need help now. He sat back down in his captain's chair. Besides, when has humanity ever backed down from a fight? The ship's engines roared to life as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. They were heading straight into hell, but they were going to save those aliens. Because that's what humans do. The underground shelter shook as another explosion rocked the surface above. Kesaria pressed her crystalline face against a small window, watching her beautiful world burn. The Zalani cities, which had taken centuries to grow, were being torn apart by creatures that looked like nightmares come to life. Leader Kesaria, her assistant Veltar, whispered, "The scouts report strange ships entering our atmosphere." Kesaria felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe someone had finally answered their desperate calls for help. She watched as dark ships cut through the smoke-filled sky. But these vessels didn't look like any rescue craft she'd ever seen. They were angular and brutal, covered in weapons and armor plating. "Are they friendly?" Veltar asked nervously. Before Kesaria could answer, the shelter's main door exploded inward, not from Vorthack weapons, but from controlled charges set by whoever was outside. Through the smoke came soldiers in black armor, moving like predators hunting prey. The first human through the door swept his weapon left and right, checking every corner for threats. His helmet hid his face, but Kesaria could feel his eyes examining everything. Behind him came more soldiers, all moving with the same deadly precision. "Area secure," the lead soldier called out. His voice was cold and mechanical through the helmet speakers. Multiple alien civilians present. No immediate threats. One of the humans stepped forward and removed his helmet, revealing a scarred human face with hard blue eyes. This was Major William Jackson, though Kesaria didn't know his name yet. What struck her immediately was how different he looked from the peaceful species she knew. His eyes never stopped moving, always watching for danger. "You're the colony leader?" Jackson asked bluntly. "Yes, I am Kesaria. Thank the stars you come to help us." Jackson didn't smile or offer comfort like she expected. Instead, he pulled out a tablet and started asking questions in rapid fire. How many Vorthack ground forces? What's their distribution pattern? Do they have air support? How many civilians are left alive? As Kesaria tried to answer, she watched the other humans work. They weren't offering food or medical aid like rescue teams should. Instead, they were setting up weapons and communication equipment. One soldier was examining pieces of dead Vorthack, poking at their organs with disturbing interest. Sergeant Lisa Thompson. Jackson called a female soldier. "What's your analysis?" Thompson looked up from the alien corpse she was studying. "Sir, their exoskeleton is weaker at the joint connections. Standard armor-piercing rounds should penetrate if we aim for the right spots." She spoke about killing like other people talked about the weather. Kesaria felt her hope turning into something else. "Fear. I'm sorry," she interrupted. "But shouldn't we focus on evacuation? Getting the survivors to safety?" Jackson finally looked directly at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her step backward. There was no warmth there, no compassion, just cold calculation. "Ma'am, we're not here to run away. We're here to solve your Vorthack problem. Permanently." Another explosion shook the shelter, closer this time. Through her window, Kesaria could see the insect-like Vorthack moving through her city's ruins. They were 8 feet tall, with razor-sharp claws and weapons that fired living ammunition. Every civilized species in the galaxy feared them, but these humans didn't look afraid. They looked excited. "Thompson, take a squad and do reconnaissance. I want to know exactly how many bugs we're dealing with." Jackson ordered. "Yes, sir. Should we avoid contact?" Jackson's smile was terrifying. "Negative. If you see them, kill them. Bring back samples." As the humans prepared to leave, Kesaria grabbed Jackson's arm. "Wait, you don't understand. The Vorthack are incredibly dangerous. They've destroyed entire civilizations. They don't show mercy. They don't take prisoners. They just consume everything." Jackson gently removed her hand from his arm. "Ma'am, with respect, You don't understand. We've read the reports. We know what these things do. He hefted his weapon, a brutal-looking rifle covered in modifications. The difference is we do it better. The humans filed out of the shelter, like they were heading to a party instead of a war zone. Kesaria watched through a window as they spread out across the ruined cityscape. She expected to see them take defensive positions, maybe set up a safe perimeter. Instead, they went hunting. Thompson's squad moved through the rubble like ghosts, but ghosts with teeth. When they encountered their first group of Vorthak, there was no hesitation, no fear. The humans attacked with coordinated precision that was beautiful and horrible to watch. The Vorthak, used to causing panic in their enemies, found themselves on the receiving end of something they'd never experienced. These humans fought like the Vorthak themselves, without mercy, without hesitation, and with obvious enjoyment. Veltar, Kesaria whispered to her assistant as they watched the battle unfold, I think we may have made a terrible mistake. What do you mean? We call for heroes to save us from monsters. She watched a human soldier drag a wounded Vorthak away, probably for interrogation. But I think we got monsters who fight other monsters. The realization hit her like a physical blow. These humans weren't rescuers. They were something far more dangerous than even the Vorthak. They were predators who had found worthy prey, and they were absolutely thrilled about it. The attack began before sunrise. Colonel Tyler Wilson stood on a hillside overlooking the Vorthak-infested valley, watching his troops move into position. The alien insects had turned the once beautiful Zalani city into a twisted hive of biomechanical structures. Most species would look at this sight and retreat. Humans saw it as a target-rich environment. Alpha Squad in position, crackled the voice of Captain Jennifer Adams through Wilson's earpiece. We have visual on the primary breeding chamber. Beta Squad ready, reported Sergeant Paul Roberts from another sector. Looks like they're using the old subway tunnels as nurseries. Wilson smiled grimly. The Vorthak thought they were clever, using underground spaces to protect their young. They didn't realize they had just trapped themselves in a maze with Earth's most dangerous predators. All units, this is Colonel Wilson. Remember, we're not just fighting these bugs. We're studying them. Every dead Vorthak teaches us something new about how to kill the next one. What happened next would have shocked any civilized species in the galaxy. The humans didn't charge in with overwhelming force like most armies would. Instead, they hunted. Adam's squad found the first group of Vorthak warriors patrolling near a collapsed building. The insects were 12 feet tall, armed with bioweapons that could melt through most armor. They had razor-sharp claws and acid spit that could blind enemies from 50 yards away. The humans studied them for 10 minutes before attacking. Roberts, you seen this? Adams whispered into her comm, they're following Centrales. Classic pack behavior. Copy that. We can use their own tracking against them. And they did. Roberts' team captured a wounded Vorthak from an earlier skirmish and used its scent to lay false trails throughout the city. Soon, Vorthak patrols were walking straight into human ambushes, following their own biological instincts into traps. But the humans didn't stop there. When they discovered that Vorthak communicated through chemical signals, they didn't just block those signals. They hijacked them. Dr. Mitchell, the team's battlefield scientist, worked with captured Vorthak glands to create false messages. Wilson, this is beautiful. Mitchell reported from his mobile lab. I can make them think there's food where we want them or danger where we want them to avoid. We're basically puppet mastering their entire hive mind. The Zalani observers, watching from their shelters, couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Vorthak had conquered dozens of worlds using these same tactics. But the humans weren't just offending against them. They were turning every Vorthak advantage into a weakness. When the aliens used their superior numbers, the humans split them up with false chemical signals. When they tried to coordinate attacks, human jammers scrambled their communications. When they retreated to defensible positions, the humans used their own captured bioweapons against them. Lieutenant Colonel Susan Davis pioneered the most disturbing tactic. Her psychological warfare unit had discovered that despite being a hive mind, individual Vorthak could still feel fear. Attention all squads, Davis announced. We're implementing Operation Nightmare. Every captured Vorthak queen is to be, question, where the others can hear. The screams that echoed through the hive tunnels weren't just torture. They were psychological warfare on a species-wide level. The Vorthak, who had never encountered an enemy that fought back with such calculated cruelty, began to panic. Their perfect coordination started breaking down. Drones abandoned their posts. Warriors made tactical mistakes. The hive mind that had conquered so many worlds was fracturing under pressure from predators who understood fear as a weapon. "This is incredible," Captain Adams reported as she watched Vorthak forces retreating from positions they should have held easily. "They're running from us." When's the last time anyone heard of Vorthak retreating? But the humans weren't satisfied with just winning. They wanted to understand their enemy completely. Every captured Vorthak was studied, dissected, and analyzed. Their weapons were reverse engineered. Their biology was mapped. Their psychology was broken down into useful components. Sergeant Roberts discovered that Vorthak had a backup communication system using ultrasonic frequencies. Instead of just jamming it, his team learned to use it. Soon, human voices were giving orders directly to Vorthak drones, commanding them to attack their own forces. "Sir, you need to see this." Roberts called Wilson over to watch a group of modified Vorthak attacking their former nestmates. "We figured out how to reprogram their basic instincts. These three think the other Vorthak are a rival species that needs to be eliminated." Wilson watched the civil war they had created within the hive and felt a deep satisfaction. "Outstanding work, Sergeant. How many more could we convert?" The battle was no longer a fight for survival. It had become a laboratory experiment with the Vorthak as unwilling test subjects. The humans had taken everything that made the aliens dangerous and turned it into tools for their own use. By nightfall, the Vorthak forces were in complete disarray. Their perfect biological weapons had been captured and improved. Their hive mind had been hacked. Their psychological advantages had been reversed and used against them. The Zilani, watching from their hiding places, realized something that chilled them to their crystalline bones. The humans hadn't just won this battle. They had evolved during it, becoming something more dangerous than they were when they arrived. They were watching the birth of the galaxy's new apex predators. 3 days after the battle ended, General Patricia Williams walked through what used to be the main Vorthak command center. The alien bioarchitecture still pulsed with strange life, but now human technicians crawled all over like ants on a corpse. They were taking it apart, learning from it, and rebuilding it for their own purposes. "General, you need to see this," called Dr. James Mitchell from across the room. He stood next to a massive organic computer that looked like a giant brain covered in tubes. "We've cracked their entire communication network." Williams approached the grotesque machine. Human cables now snaked between the alien neural pathways, creating a hybrid system that shouldn't have been possible. "What does this give us?" "Everything," Mitchell said with barely contained excitement. "Every Vorthak hive in the sector of space. Their locations, their strength, their next targets. We can see them coming from light years away." The general nodded approvingly, but her expression remained cold. Around them, other human scientists worked on equally disturbing projects. They weren't just studying their defeated enemies. They were harvesting them. In one corner, Captain Daniel Clark supervised the interrogation of captured Vorthak queens. The process was clinical and efficient, but what they were doing would have horrified most civilized species. The humans had discovered that individual Vorthak could be separated from the hive mind through a combination of drugs and surgical procedures. "Subject 7 is ready for conditioning," reported Major Catherine Brown, emerging from one of the conversion chambers. She looked tired but satisfied. Full memory wipe complete. It now responds only to human command codes. Williams walked over to examine their latest success. The creature that had once been a deadly Vorthak warrior now stood docilely in its containment cell, waiting for orders. Its natural weapons had been enhanced with human technology. Its armor had been reinforced. Its biological programming had been completely rewritten. "How many have we converted so far?" Williams asked. 43 fully operational units," Brown replied. "Another dozen in various stages of processing. Colonel Wilson thinks we can have a full battalion ready within the month." From across the room, Caesarea and several other Zilani representatives watched in growing horror. They had been invited to witness what the humans called their integration procedures, but what they saw challenged everything they believed about mercy and civilization. "This is monstrous," Caesarea whispered to her aide Veltar. "They're turning living beings into weapons." Veltar couldn't answer. He was watching human engineers attach new biomechanical components to a converted Vorthack, upgrading its natural weapon systems. The creature submitted to the modifications without protest, its mind now belonging entirely to its human masters. General Williams noticed the Zalani delegation's distress and walked over to them. Her expression softened slightly, but her eyes remained as hard as steel. "I understand your concerns," she said diplomatically, "but these creatures were going to destroy your entire species. Every world they've touched has been consumed completely. We're simply ensuring that never happens again." "But you're enslaving them," Caesarea protested, "making them into tools." "We're repurposing a weapon that was pointed at innocent people," Williams corrected firmly. "These modified units will help us protect other worlds from Vorthack attacks. Isn't saving lives worth some moral discomfort?" The question hung in the air like poison. The Zalani had no good answer. Their species valued all life, but they also wanted to survive. The humans were offering them safety at a price that made them sick to their souls. Dr. Mitchell approached with a tablet full of data. "General, the intelligence we've extracted from the Queen specimens is remarkable. We now know the location of 17 different Vorthack breeding worlds. With our new hybrid units, we could eliminate the entire species within a year." Williams studied the information carefully. "What about resistance from other galactic powers? Will they try to stop us?" "Unlikely," Mitchell replied. "Most species are terrified of the Vorthack. If we eliminate the threat permanently, they'll probably thank us. Quietly, of course." The conversation was interrupted by Colonel Anthony Wilson entering the command center. He looked exhausted but victorious, having just returned from mopping up the last Vorthack resistance pockets. "General, I have good news and interesting news," he reported. "Good news first. The planet is completely secure. Every Vorthack on the surface has been either eliminated or captured. And the interesting news?" Wilson smiled grimly. 3 more colonies in nearby systems have sent distress calls. Seems the Vorthack were using this world as a staging area for a much larger invasion. He paused dramatically. "They want our help." Williams felt a surge of satisfaction. Word was spreading about humanity's victory. Other species were starting to realize that humans didn't just fight wars. They won them completely. "Prep the hybrid units for deployment," she ordered. "Time to field test our new weapons." As the humans began planning their next campaign, Caesarea realized the full scope of what they had unleashed. Her people had called for heroes to save them from monsters. Instead, they had summoned something far more dangerous. They had awakened predators who didn't just defeat their enemies. They consumed them, learned from them, and turned them into tools for conquering the next threat. The humans weren't just winning this war. They were evolving it, changing the very nature of conflict in the galaxy, and that terrified her more than the Vorthack ever had. 6 months had passed since the battle for Kepler, 442b, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Richard Thompson stood in the command center of what the humans now called Kepler Station, built from the bones of the defeated Vorthack hive. Through the massive windows, he could see human patrol ships launching into the void, each one carrying a cargo that would have been unimaginable just a year ago. "Sir, we have confirmation from the Arcturus system," reported Commander Brian Phillips, looking up from his communication console. "The Vorthack Advance Fleet has been completely eliminated. 0 human casualties." Thompson nodded with satisfaction. The modified Vorthack units had performed even better than expected. What had once been humanity's greatest enemy was now their most effective weapon against other Vorthack swarms. Captain Helen Davies approached with the morning briefing. "Admiral, we have 17 diplomatic ships requesting docking permission. That's more than yesterday." Thompson almost laughed. For decades, most alien species had barely acknowledged humanity's existence. Now they were lining up to curry favor with Earth's representatives. The change in attitude was dramatic and telling. The first delegation was from the Centauri Trade Federation, the same group that had refused to even respond to the original Zilani distress call. Their ambassador, a nervous creature with too many eyes, practically groveled as he offered exclusive trade agreements and military cooperation. "We have always admired human resourcefulness," the ambassador claimed, his voice shaking slightly. "Perhaps we could discuss mutual defense pacts?" Thompson listened politely, while mentally noting how the alien story had changed. 6 months ago, these same traders had called humans primitive warmongers behind closed doors. Now they wanted human protection from threats they were too weak to face themselves. The second meeting was with representatives from the Outer Rim colonies, a loose alliance of peaceful species that had always prided themselves on their civilized approach to conflict resolution. Their leader, an elderly diplomat named Council Prime Xerus, looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. "Admiral Thompson," Xerus began carefully, "we want to formally thank humanity for resolving the Vorthack situation. Our intelligence suggests you eliminated 17 separate hive worlds in the past 5 months. 18, actually," Thompson corrected with a slight smile. "We finished the Proxima nest yesterday." The alien delegation exchanged worried glances. 18 entire worlds, each containing billions of Vorthack, wiped out in less half a year. The speed and efficiency of human warfare was becoming legendary throughout the galaxy. "We were wondering," Xerus continued hesitantly, "if humanity might consider establishing a permanent peacekeeping presence in our territory, for mutual protection, of course." Thompson understood what they were really asking. They wanted human military bases in their space, not protect them from the Vorthack, but to make sure other species knew they were under human protection. It was tribute disguised as alliance. "We'll consider your proposal," Thompson replied diplomatically. "Of course, maintaining peacekeeping forces is expensive. We'd need to discuss appropriate compensation." After the delegates left, Commander Phillips approached with concerned expression. "Sir, don't you think we're moving too fast? Some of these species are getting genuinely frightened of us." Thompson walked over to the tactical display, showing human forces spread across dozens of star systems. Red markers indicated active military operations. Blue markers showed permanent bases. Green markers represented allied worlds under human protection. "Brian, 6 months ago, the galaxy ignored desperate pleas for help while an entire species faced extinction. Now those same civilizations are begging for our protection." He pointed to the display. "Fear isn't necessarily a bad thing. It keeps people honest." The truth was more complicated than Thompson let on. Human military doctrine had evolved rapidly since the first Vorthack encounter. They had learned to fight like their enemies, but better. More importantly, they had learned to make their enemies fight for them. The converted Vorthack units were just the beginning. Human scientists were now working with captured biotechnology from a dozen different species. Each conflict taught them something new about warfare, about biology, about the weaknesses of their potential opponents. Captain Davies returned with the latest intelligence reports. "Admiral, we've intercepted communications from the core worlds. They're discussing forming a defensive alliance against us." Thompson wasn't surprised. The older, more established galactic powers had finally realized what the younger species already knew. Humanity wasn't just another civilization joining the galactic community. They were a new type of predator that could adapt to any threat and turn it into a weapon. "How many worlds are we talking about?" 47 so far, sir, including some major military powers." Thompson studied the numbers. 47 worlds united by fear of what humanity had become. In the old days, such an alliance would have been impossible to defeat. But humans no longer fought the old way. "Davies, prep a message to the fleet commanders. Tell them we've just been handed a target list." The captain looked shocked. "Sir, are you suggesting we attack a defensive alliance?" "I'm suggesting we demonstrate why defensive alliances won't work against us." Thompson smiled coldly. "We don't conquer worlds anymore, Davies. We convert them. Every enemy becomes a tool. Every defeat becomes a learning experience. Every species that opposes us teaches us how to defeat the next one." Meanwhile, in her private chamber on the station, Caesarea finished writing her final report to what remained of the Galactic Council. Her words would be read across the galaxy, a warning that came too late. "We called across the stars for heroes to save us from monsters," she wrote. "Instead, we received monsters who saved us from monsters, then became something worse than anything we had ever feared. The balance of power has shifted permanently. Humanity has shown the galaxy that in a universe of predators, the ultimate predator is the one that can become whatever it needs to become to win." She looked out her window at the human ships preparing for their next deployment. Somewhere in their holds were weapons that had once been living beings, technology stolen from defeated enemies, and soldiers who viewed war not as a last resort, but as an opportunity to grow stronger. The age of human dominance had begun, and the galaxy would never be safe again.